So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all the leaders for joining in. It's a pleasure to host this roundtable discussion today. I'm Pritha Nagpal, VP Sales at Herky. Of course, Jobs for Her is formerly now known as Herky. I have total 15 years of experience, and of course, I've worked with a lot of you, and I can see a lot of familiar faces today who've been working with. So, welcome again. And just to tell you that this is going to be a recorded session, and we'll be sharing the recordings with all the speakers here. And I would like to thank our lovely audience. Thank you for joining in. Guys, I think I'll request you to put in your questions in the chat so that we can have the QA session in the end. So before we start, the topic today is, of course, unlock leadership. I would like to introduce our panelists here. Anupama Basak, HR Director of Freshworks. Anupama Sridhar, Senior Manager, Commercial Excellence, Beam Suntory. Charusmitha Rao, Director, Global Talent Development, Akamai Technologies. Koshika Nimesh, Program Manager, Recruitment Marketing and Strategic Sourcing, Ferry. Linet D'Souza, Senior Director, Carelon Global Solutions. Remona Lingham, Head of People and Capability, Anko. Sarika Saini, Senior Director, HR, Birlasoft Limited. Shivani Valluri, People Lead, BIT, Agile Coach, SoftwareOne. Yuvika Sudharan, HR Business Manager, India Technology Center. So my question to all of you is what corporate India is doing to advance a woman's career. So according to a recent study that is conducted by Herky, we found that there are 37% of women who are currently holding senior positions at the organizations. So we thought it'll be good if we can discuss this lack of representation at leadership position, how we can create more role models, how we can get more mentors in the system. And we're seeing this whole scarcity, how it can hinder a woman's progression, and it becomes harder for them to envision themselves at higher positions and receive guidance. So my first question here to all of you is, what are the primary factors contributing to the underrepresentation of women in senior and leadership roles within your organization? Um, so I think we'll start with A. Anupama, you want to go first?
Pritha, you have to say which Anupama. There are two Anupamas
Oh,
here.
yeah. Anupama, you started it, so it'll be good if you can start.
So thank you. And since that I self-volunteered myself to start, I'll go. So I think the most important thing that is here now is that there is a lot of acceptance and acknowledgement about the fact that you need a diverse workforce to have the best effectiveness of your entire workforce, which is a combination of both your male and female workforce. And with that acknowledgement and with that acceptance coming in, there are a lot of initiatives, there are a lot of steps that every organization is taking or trying to take or learning from their peer organizations in terms of how to build a more inclusive workspace. And with the moment we talk about diversity and inclusion, we think of, what are some of the benefits that a women employee gets. But to me, I think it's more about an inclusive workspace. Inclusiveness sometimes comes before diversity, and that's where you build a very, very strong, powerful, positive work environment where women employees feel motivated and empowered to come to work and feel that they'll be able to manage both their professional as well as personal responsibilities very well without compromising on their career growth on any aspects. So that's my point of view on this one.
Thanks, Anupama. Anupama, Sridhar, would you like?
Yeah. So if you talk about barriers to leadership as such, why you don't see enough women in senior leadership positions, and I'd like to bring in a little bit of the perspective and the function that I work in, which is basically the sales function. And my background has been in core FMCG sales roles, which is in itself a little bit of a rarity. If you look at female employee representation in the commercial role, especially.
Yes.
And I think the biggest barrier has been it's a mindset, that people believe that sales is not something that women can do because it's both physically as well as mentally intensive. And that's a perception, because what I've found with a lot of female leaders who actually do manage to progress through the ranks is that it's not true. So I think a lot of it is also to do with how people perceive women, at least, and I'm talking about specifically sales, how they perceive women in these roles. It's still been a historically male dominated profession. You don't see a lot of representation, and I think a lot of active measures that organizations are starting to take in terms of ensuring that we have adequate representation in commercial teams, at least, is helping. So we do that in Beam Suntory very clearly. We always put that very clearly. If there is a position, if all things being equal, if we can find a female candidate for a given role, then we will prefer, at least when it comes to sales, because the representation is so dire in this function. So I think it's mindset to some extent, for sure, in terms of why women do not progress. And the second is, I think you will see a large drop off in junior and mid management roles, because I think the most obvious reason, right? Women get married, they start families, and that becomes basically a choice and a fork in the road for most women, wherein they have to start thinking, what is more important for them. And while organizations do say that they have provided policies which are favorable, I think again it's something for a lot of us to just we still hesitate, right? At the end of the day, in terms of how it will pan out, and which is why you see a lot of women also delaying having children of late. So these are barriers. I think people want to reach a certain level of position before they can take these life decisions, even if policies are inclusive. So I think those are some of the barriers. I think some of them are internal, some of them are external, and I think that's where we have to start, talking about these issues with women more actively, so that they can, move beyond those prevailing thoughts and progress within the organization.
Sure. Others, would you like to? Somebody would want to pitch in, or should we go
Yeah,
alphabetical?
yeah,
I'll
definitely. If I can. Is it okay? If I can, go ahead.
Yeah. Shivani, please
Okay.
go ahead.
Anupama, Sridhar, you have mentioned a very good point, and that's very relevant. And moreover, with the senior leadership, you hardly see as, she mentioned, like, there's only 37%. Why? Because that's what out of experience I'm seeing, that by the time they reach that senior level also, the kids grow up, and then the education, like board exam, 10th, 12th, and that's the ripe age. Oh no, I have to focus on that. I think that is the time, if we can give them more support and give them more mentoring kind of a stuff in the organization itself, that you can focus on the other more important topics as well in your life, but at the same time you use the maximum use of technology, give them the supportive environment, wherein wherever they are, they can still continue to work and at the same time focus on the more important stuff like higher education of the kids, and also some, maybe because they have to take care of the parents or in-laws, whatever the scenario may be. So, and you right, and there was also a mention about the mindset, right? And somebody also mentioned about the inclusivity comes before diversity, right? That's the mindset that we all need to focus on. because if we don't need them change the mindset between amongst ourselves and of course the generation which is coming up, then I think it'll not be it'll be a roller coaster ride for them. But for us also, we need to have a mindset change. And I think the organizations are changing there. And I have seen from past two organizations that I've worked and now SoftwareOne, I think we have made sufficient impact for the leaders or the women in leadership to have the right mentoring in place, to have the right support, and of course the flexi workers.
Yeah. So I would like to add, Preeta, to this point, as it's been uh, we are discussing about it. So there are two factors. One is obviously mindset, which all have spoken. And if we see from 3% in CISO to 37% in leadership position, I completely agree with Anupama, Basak, that there is acceptance at management level. So we are accepting that, yes, it is required, and there are certain initiatives which are happening. But the question here is why we still don't have enough women leaders in leadership position. So in McKinsey's survey of 2022 on women in leadership positions, it's been found that the term which the reason why we don't have women leaders, many women leaders in leadership position, is a phenomenon called as broken rug. So what's happening? We are accepting that, okay, we need women leader, we need diversity, but the challenge is, out of if we promote 100 men at managerial position versus we promote only 87 women at managerial position, and obviously all the factors come into picture, and when they grow, and the management is saying, yes, we need women leaders, but where are those women leaders? So there is a gap, and it's increasing day by day. So I think with mindset shift, we need to work on the development opportunities of our women talent, to whom we can further grow, give higher position, and that's where we can mend this broken rug. So it also plays a very big role in less number of women at leadership position.
So I just want to add here, one second.
Yeah.
One second. Okay, so I think we all are on the similar platform, but what I have experienced in my organizations and previously when I've dealt as a counselor, as a mentor, as a coach, etc., I have found that there is some societal and individual factors which come into place, which we all know, but I think person has to, and I'm not talking about one gender, I'm talking about a person. So a leader is who? A leader is a person who is a culmination of masculine and feminine traits. So when we say masculine, it is assertion or confrontation or acting courageously. And when we say feminine, as the world says, that compassion, empathy, etc. So it has to be a culmination of both traits. So I think women sometimes take it as a self-imposed thing, they get into a guilt trap and they deliberately step down. So I think first they will have to get into that candid conversation. They will have to accept that this is it. You cannot be good at everything, right? And you need not do it all. Plus organizations, mindset is certainly one thing, and every organization is doing a sensitization around it, men sensitization, other gender sensitization, etc. But they will have to have those difficult conversations, and they will have to have that courage, because sometimes we like being very peaceful inside. We don't want to disturb that work-life harmony, right? And organizations will also have to take conscious measures. It's not just, DEI is just one thing that everybody thinks, yes, it is good to have. But when it really comes at execution, people sometimes fall back, right? So if I have to talk of Birlasoft, we are really working on the mindset shift. And also, somebody said mentoring, it's pretty important, because having the right mentors, having the right kind of career guidance at the right time of the juncture of your career is very, very important. If you have to ask me, like I have 2 women mentors and 2 men mentors. So in my organization, we don't do only women sessions. They could be support groups, but we involve men and other genders as well. And then we talk of unconscious bias, and then people share insights. So I think organizations at every juncture, maybe policy, maybe promotion, maybe compensation, right? Maybe percolating the unconscious bias across the organizations. Everybody will have to take measures. And I'm sure everybody is already doing it. But yes, we need to, and especially I would again focus on this one thing. I am enough. So somewhere I gave this thing that I am enough is the mantra. I believe in myself is the mantra. So being that self-reliance and getting out of that guilt, that is the major thing. And I am a mother of 14-year-old. Sometimes I fall into a guilt trap. I rejoined my organization at that time when it was a 3 months maternity, right? But then I joined because I never wanted to lose the momentum. Correct. And what happens is when a woman is going after the maternity, this thing, people, assume maybe she is not ready. She wants to be in a comfortable environment. But the thing is, you have to reflect upon, actually, we have that fear of missing out. We have already gained the momentum. We want to do more. So when I return back or somebody returns back, then a manager should ask how they want to be treated, right? Don't assume that yes, this woman needs support, this woman needs more comfortable environment. Don't assume. So we are sensitizing on this angle to our managers, that don't assume, they're ready to do more. So yeah, this is my point regarding
to add to it, Sarika, I would bring it a very good point that when I was the fourth batch of women officers in Indian Air Force, so the Air Force was not ready to handle lady officers. And we had a deployment, and I was part of the Kargil War. So we had a deployment across the border. And then my colonel, or rather my group captain, he was surprised and he did not know what to do. Oh, how can we take you along with us? Right. So he just assumed. I said, no, this is my job. I'll do it. No, how will we, make you stay separate from men, and how we're going to arrange the logistics? I said, no, but this is what, we have to take one step forward and bury the assumptions and take things in our hand many times. Yes.
I agree. And I think assume is one thing. And if we need something, how many of us ask for it? That we need that support internally, externally, at work, at home. I think those are the challenges we also face as growing leaders at times. We also assume. I think we also really need to rethink and relook at our priorities sometimes. I think Charu, Koshika, you guys would like to add in?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So I would actually want to build on the point that you mentioned, Pritha, that I think going back to the topic of some of the reasons why we see less representation of women in leadership and in senior positions in particular, right? I remember one of the speeches that Indira Nui had given in very, popular speech. So, pitch in case I miss out on an important point here. But she said that, especially talking about women who are now ready to take up senior leadership positions or senior roles in general, are also at a juncture in life where they have to begin to take care of their personal responsibilities very seriously, right? And I'm going to build on the point that Shivani had mentioned here, that this is the time when your parents begin to need you more, their health needs concern, your kids are doing better at school now, they need that support, they're in adolescent age, right? So we really forget, we in fact go on the minus side of the number line, where we say pampering is not for us. Taking time for ourselves is not for us, Now, if you talk about a professional, irrespective of the gender, it's very important that you have that focus when you're talking about career growth or remaining in your professional career. You remember, you may have seen in Indigo, especially when a pilot enters, outside the pilot gate, it's written, keep your worries outside. Because now is when you're getting into the serious work, right? So I think the same mindset is what women also need to have, and ask to be pampered. Ask that these responsibilities be shared, right? I think even before we talk about how are we taking care of women at workplace, how are we taking care of them before the 9 a.m. happens, right? Did they really start their day with the support and the pampering they needed? Did they have the right mechanism at home? Are their mother-in-laws, are their father-in-laws, are their husbands and kids giving them the right support? If not, or even if they are they entering the workplace with the right mindset? Right? It's very important for us to look at some of those aspects as an organization. Now, looking at it from a woman's perspective, there are studies that says, there's a study by LinkedIn that says that if a particular job description is seen by a woman against a man, only if she feels she's 100% fit for that role, she will apply for that role. A man at 70%, right? Imagine, I mean, now just look at it as a woman, men are okay to not know 3 things which are listed as essential in a job description, and you're holding yourself back, right?
Absolutely agree.
Also, in terms of your promotions, etc., women lack the self-confidence in talking about the great things that they have done, right? You look at men. I mean, I'm not trying to put down men here, but then I'm just saying that sometimes confidence is extremely important for you to position yourself as a professional, right?
True.
So I think confidence and really building your support mechanism at those right junctures in life when you're trying to excel in your career is extremely important. It is some of the relationship that a woman has to individually take. And then, there'll be environment and support groups that we can talk about here in the call today, which they can further leverage.
I think I'd like to add on to.
Yeah, please, Remona. Yeah.
I
was
think
just going to add that, we're not anti-men, we are
No, we are not. We are not.
Of course.
We are not.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I think I just want to add on to Koshika as well as, all of the other fellow panelists over here, right? I think some very pertinent topics touched on and what individuals can do, what organizations can do. And I think we just need to kind of get to the fact that the challenges that women face are different from the challenges that men face, right? That is the starting point. And of course, when it comes to women, it is essential for women to be able to kind of call out what is it that they need, right? Be it in terms of the support system, whether it's families, whether it's friends, or even to your manager in the organization, right? I think being more open, talking about what you need, right? A lot of times as women, we tend to hold back. We try to manage the challenges of the world, the burdens that we face, big or small, ourselves, right? And we do think that by not being able to do the best in everything, right, we are failing ourselves, we're failing the system, we're failing everyone around, right? That mindset definitely has to change for individuals, for each one of us, right? We need to look at what is the support system that's available, and there's plenty of it, right? You've got friends, you've got your peers, you've got the organization, and you've got your families, right? So I think reaching out and asking for what support, what are the challenges, and how can your environment help you in that is essential. I think for the organization, multiple areas that my other panelists have touched on, right? But I just can't reinforce on the need for I think strong mentoring programs, having strong coaches available, building that, right? And women reaching out for it, right? Again, using I think some I think Grant Thornton data, if I'm not mistaken, right, which basically said that for every 10 male senior executives that would reach out for executive coaching, you would have just one female senior executive member going out for coaching. And what's the reason? The reason is a lot of times, when it is about development, men jump into it, they go after it, right? Whether it's signing up for programs, going in for coaching, etc. But women tend to kind of go back, think about it, mull over it, want to discuss it with families and people around, and then come back to say that, what, probably this is not the right time for me, right? I think that's a change that individuals need to make, and that's a change that organizations need to make in terms of how can we enable some of this for our female employees, right? That makes it more accessible, that makes it more relevant, right? And easier for them to kind of to develop, to access through mentoring, coaching programs, etc. And of course the huge mindset change that everyone's been talking about, right? Stemming from senior leadership. You don't have the senior leadership buy-in in that, it's just not going to cascade through the organization as a culture, right? So yes, the senior leadership, mindset change is an absolute must. And I think, at Anko, that's really what we're doing, whether it is, from our Bangalore office or from our global setup, right? Changing mindsets, changing the needs, and addressing the needs that women have compared to what our male team members have, right? So I think those are just a couple of points that I kind of wanted to kind of bring
You
in.
said it right, Remona. You made me go back into the memory lane when I faced this. There was a point in the early career when my daughter was quite small and I was given an on-site opportunity, right? And I mulled over it and I, took my time. And then finally I said, no, my child is too small. I cannot go right now. And now I think at that point of time, if I had any mentoring and a support or some coaching available for me, maybe I could have crossed that barrier then, right?
Absolutely, Shivani. We all speak from our experiences,
Yeah,
right? So
and
thank you.
now is the
We all
time
do.
that, all the organizations are taking a step forward, and I'm really happy for that. And ensure that team, women in my team, they don't go through that again.
But that's very important. As leaders, you are also setting examples for them.
Yes,
I think
yes.
Linet and Charu, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, Preeta. So I was just saying, just adding to what Ramona and Shivani just said about how I wish I had that. We're talking from our own experiences. One of the things that I want to add to all the brilliant points that's already been made is there's a quote which says that you cannot be what you can't see. So the need for role models, especially in senior positions, do we have enough women who've already made it to leadership levels, being there, being visible, acting as mentors, sponsors, and talking about their journey as leaders, and creating that moment of, okay, if she can do it, I can do it too. Maybe that is also important. And I was reading this research which says women, when they enter the workforce, there's a lot of wind in their sails, but over time, the aspiration level actually drops by 60%, whereas for men, it remains steady. And this is probably it goes back to all the things that we discussed so far about how we don't follow linear careers, and there's this biological clock and your career clock always in conflict and all of that. But it's also about having some of those systemic practices, seeing more. I remember when we did one of the leadership programs at Akamai and got a lot of women at lead level together. One of the comments made by a participant was, "I didn't even know there were so many women leaders at lead level in Akamai in the Bangalore office." So just getting people together and creating those role model moments will be key.
Nice.
Okay, so I'll just touch upon a couple of points, all valid points that all the rest of the panelists have touched upon. A lot of studies have shown that women give more importance to work over networking in comparison to men. And I think networking is such an integral skill which will help us get so much more visibility amongst our peers, decision makers, leaders, and other role models we have. So, intentionally, as leaders, we should try and create more opportunities to help women network and showcase their capabilities at work. I also feel we talk a lot about gender equality, but the thing we need to talk about is gender equity. And I know some of us touched upon that. We all know that equity promotes equality. So, how many of us have a framework in place that creates a lot of flexibility for women post their return from maternity? How many of us actually have learning and you know career advancement plans to actually address any skill gap while women have been out on probably a break in service? And these are critical points that we need to really take care of. Being very intentional about what we want to do once women come to work and how do we advance them is very critical. And I'm sure I agree with Charu and Ramona. Having leaders at the top creates role models and creates a lot of inspiration to young people who are joining the workforce. So those are my bits, Preeti.
Thanks, Lynette. I know we started with A, but and we ended with Lynette. So I'll put out my question to Lynette now. So what are the kind of strategies the company as an organization, what your company is adopting to address these challenges? Not only increase women at the leadership level, but how to be have a more inclusive environment and pipeline for leadership as well?
Okay. So your first question was in terms of what are we doing to create a pipeline for women. One is intentionally we are being very intentional in our leadership hiring. At every level, we are ensuring that there is a certain percentage of women who are being interviewed. Okay, uh, when they get selected, it's always basis the merit, but making sure that our vendor partners also have a certain proportion of women resumes that come across for any leadership positions that we hire. And I think that's the first step that we took, just to ensure that we are seeing a proportion of women that we want to interview. Secondly, we are also looking at what we can do from an upskilling perspective. A lot of STEM graduates join us and when they join us, we have 50% representation of women and men. But as they go along, we see a drop in women, and our leadership is probably at around 30% at Carelon Global. So we have started a lot of upscaling plans for women as young professionals. So looking at their skills, what can we do to reduce the skill gap? We also have a career framework in place if you want to go in the management route, if you want to do a technical route. What are the kind of gaps? What are the kind of certifications one can do? And we start really small, more than just looking at it from a professional level. And I know some of us touched upon this. We also want to ensure that at the personal level, women see a lot of development as well. We do a lot of holistic well-being sessions for women. How is it that they can delegate more at work and at home? How is it that they can have work-life integration? How is it that they can achieve financial security at a very young age? What can they do on their physical security? What can we do on their physiological security as well? So we're not only addressing mental wellness, but also a whole lot of things, because we want women not only to lead at the workplace but to lead with life, and that's the mantra that we are following. So these are just some of the things that we make sure that we have a pipeline of women leaders and also help them personally as well as professionally.
Wow, that's amazing. Others would like to add to this?
Happy to go next. I think very similar to what Lynette said, right? Whether it is starting at the recruitment stage itself, uh, again, it has to be intentional, right? If you are looking at gender diversity numbers across the organization, it's going to be highly skewed if you're just probably hiring at entry levels, right? So it has to be intentional in terms of looking at every level in the organization. The percentage of male versus female team members, as well as not just in terms of from a hiring perspective, but also how are you growing and developing your female team members, your female employees in the organization, right? Which then goes back to your entire learning and development programs, whether it's the women in leadership programs, focused coaching programs, to support women in their journeys, right? Being a largely technology based organization, right? Having those technical mentors to help women advance in their career journeys, right? Being up to date, being skilled in terms of new technologies is essential, right? And therefore, having the support that women need is definitely an area of focus. Uh, Showcasing success stories is absolutely essential, right? Because we all are inspired, we learn, we take away, and we're able to kind of imbibe uh, you know what's working in the lives of others as well, right? And I think being able to kind of showcase some of those success stories is essential. Networking, I think Lynette touched on that, is absolutely key. As women, we're just not great at networking, right? We are hardworking, we get the job done, and we do it really well, right? But when it comes to networking, we do hold ourselves back, right? Because we've got our other priorities, whether it's home and probably deliverables, right? So who's going to put the time in to go out and network, right? But those are the differentiators, and I think creating those opportunities for women intentionally to go out and network is absolutely essential. I think as globally, our numbers in the more recent years have grown, right? Women in leadership roles have grown. If you look at, I think, more specifically around CEO level jobs to and MD level roles in the last 3 years has grown by close to about 70 to 80%. If you look at CIO level roles, have moved to about 60 to 70% more women in those levels, right? So there is movement, and it's movement in the right direction, right? So a lot of what we're doing, a lot of what organizations are doing is in the right direction. I think it's about keeping your foot on the pedal and doing a lot more in terms of areas that that probably women are still struggling with. So I think those are just a couple of points from my end in terms of
Sure.
moving women ahead.
I think
So,
that's it.
Preeta, in Charu, may
Yeah,
I?
yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Few of the steps in CNH industrial, being an auto industry and having four different entities across India, the challenges are different across entities. So we have followed a holistic approach, which not only promotes to the numbers like women hiring, but to make sure that we have a right culture of developing women, introducing inclusivity, and also how we can brand these women to the various forums and leadership levels. So hiring, it's not different from all other speakers who have spoken about it. In addition to that, we have consciously identified few roles where we feel that for example, manufacturing, it's always been seen similar to sales. Like you may not find many women profiles for positions. So we have identified few positions which we can find easily. And then same way across the organization, in technology centers, even leadership roles has been identified where we can have women leaders. This is a conscious call. I agree that people may debate about it, that what about talent and all, but I feel that if we have booked a position, we are finding the talented people only. There is no compromise on that. Then we have actually five pillars. The first is about talent acquisition. Then we have the second pillar, which talks about development. So we have curated different programs considering different needs of our women employees. So for there are behavioral skills program, then there are programs for budding women leaders, which help them to build on confidence and a brand image of their own, which they can also mindset change, where they can understand that how it is important for them to focus on their career as well as their personal life, and how to maintain a balance. And then we have different mentoring programs for women managers. As mentor is one of the program. You cannot have only women mentor for women, thinking that okay, only women can understand the need of women. Men can help them to boost on confidence, build a image of theirs, and brings visibility, how they can bring visibility, and networking opportunities also. The third pillar we have is about culture, where we have different policies and processes in place. We have different awareness sessions for all employees on unconscious bias, gender sensitization, and then we have different ERGs also, where women can come talk about their concerns. So everybody feel, oh, it's not just with me, it's across. And these are global initiatives, the ERG programs which are happening. Branding is another area where any women want to share something, we can publish it. We give opportunities to women to talk more. So this is another pillar. And then we have engagement pillar, because it's always important. We as social animals, we want to talk our concerns, and we want to celebrate also. So there are forums where we have women specific engagement initiatives driven by men in the organization. It's not that they are driving, it's to collaborate, to feel each other as same, not like, oh, I'm women, I have not been treated well. So it improves on inclusions as well. So there are few initiatives which we are doing in CNH, and this I have seen in my previous organizations as well. So I agree that it's what we see, we believe in that. So another good program which I have seen, not which we are working on here as well, a journey to the top, where we bring women accomplished leader, not only within the organization, externally as well, who talk to these women and show all the challenges they have seen and how they have overcome that. And I think this can help all women to overcome their fears and ask for higher responsibilities and more challenges.
Yeah, yeah, Yuvika, I think a lot of us here will have a lot of male mentors and coaches.
Yeah.
Koshika, you wanted to ask and say something?
Yeah, I just want to add on to the discussion. Very happy to hear some of these thoughts coming in, especially about men's involvement voluntarily and by us pushing them a little bit, driving them a little bit. So we very recently, not very recently, about 6 months back, had created a page on jobs for one of our clients. And they themselves said that, we have a testimonial from one of our male employees, male leaders actually, and we want to post that on the page. And we said, absolutely fabulous idea. And that was one of the top things talked about on that page. So, that is really how we live inclusion, right? That's some of the practices that we see that's happening on the client side. And so while I'm at Korn Ferry, there are multiple clients that I work on multiple solutions, like you saw on recruitment, marketing, strategic sourcing, training, bit, etc. And E&I is one of those topics, right? So I would talk a little bit in kind of collection of the kind of things that I'm seeing happen. Definitely, the more we see women leaders being represented or internally and externally, that is something that definitely works in building the confidence with the tentative talent pool outside, the women candidates and professionals outside as to how they can also envision themselves in those roles in future. So that's one practice that I see very frequently. Getting women leaders involved in the hiring process, right? So far, the talent is looking at these women leaders through the windows on social media, etc. But we bring them on in the hiring process. So that's another step that I see is when the women candidate can connect with the women leader, ask them questions like how it is to work at ABC organization, how has been your career journey so far, what were some of the obstacles that you saw coming in where the company jumped in to support you, right? So now they're having a first-hand experience of how it is to join this company and have a long-term career, right? So that's another practice that I see very frequently. We realize that talent acquisition is one of our primary touch points when we connect with the talent pool, right? So we spent a lot of time in seeing how is that we can enhance our team's capability in understanding and dealing with this sensitivity, right? So there were a series of trainings that we planned for our talent acquisition team. We started re-looking at some of our job descriptions to see how they are inclusive, at times inviting when it comes to applications from women candidates is another thing that we saw. And then communication, that is the baseline. That is something that you absolutely cannot do without in today's time. Communications internally with your employees so they stay back, women employees especially, and outside through the various branding that we are doing, right? So while we have these women leaders identified across the organization globally, not just in India, US, EMEA, etc. We identify these women, they come and talk on various platforms with the talent internally and externally. And then we boast about, we talk about these engagements with the talent pool. When we have representation of women being so comfortably doing their job, inspiring other women, networking with platforms outside, networking with societies like Society of Women Engineers, etc., then that is how a company shows commitment to this, right? And that's a holistic way of showing that, yes, we are committed, not just in idea, but in action, and action that's going to take us very far, right? So these are some of the practices that I see the companies are doing, which can really position them as a company where the women talent would like to seek employment and have a long-term career.
Koshika, I just want to add, it's very commendable, and it makes me reiterate here that SoftwareOne has trained all the interview panelists on terms of unconscious biases, on terms, and it's a global, engagement or the global initiative. It has been taken that all the interview panelists first have to go through the trainings, and then after they have done, they'll go and interview the candidate, whether it's female or a male, irrespective of the gender. But then unconscious biases and your body language or your mindset. So that has to, so it comes from there because, as you said, talent acquisition is the first place. And then, of course, the communication, because that's how the world sees you.
Of course.
Yes.
Sure. Sarika, I think you would like to add, and Charu. And we'll
So
go
I
to both
think,
Anupamas after this.
sure. So I think two things, and I think everybody has very nicely put it together. Thank you everyone for that. It is going to help us, and it is going to actually condition and reinforce the things which we are doing. Two things from my side, in terms of, though we have a three-pronged approach in terms of hiring, sensitization, and career advancement. So in sensitization, of course, one are women-based sessions which are happening, and the senior leaders are talking about breaking the glass ceiling, limiting the getting out of your self-limiting beliefs, etc. But what the major one is the rendezvous with Verve, which we have named it, in which we always ask one DEI council member. There's a DEI council comprising of 11 members and a sponsor who is our CFO. So we ask them to partner. So there's one man and one woman, and we invite other communities as well. Later on, we have that plan. Just 1 second. Yeah, sorry. So I think that is happening, going on very well. Earlier, I think women-focused forums were much, but now I have seen the involvement of men, and many of you have already talked about it. Second thing is about the career advancement, and we have called it Be Empowered program, and that is encompassing like picking up. We talked of like picking up those top 2 ratings, the women who get the top 2 ratings, and they have completed at least 1 year in the organization. So around 35 women every year we have. Then there is an individual development plan for them, and then we have a blended learning approach of 70-20-10 principle for them, giving them higher certifications, their experience, exposure, and education. And I believe, and this I have borrowed from my earlier organization of John Deere, where I was taking care of L&D, that I believe in a chain of learning. So these women, they have to undergo a 26 weeks learning intervention, encompassing everything. I don't have to tell you because you are dexterous at that. After that, there's a mentoring program wherein the DEI council members are only the mentors and the senior leaders are the mentors. So there are 8 sessions which have to take place. They have to establish the relationship. They have to evaluate the relationship. They have to monitor the relationship. And after it is being done, we are not going to let them lose. We are asking them to teach back. So what they are then doing it, they are getting into this forum called Connective Forum, which is a layer below them, and they are teaching back. So that chain of learning continues. So that is what I thought could be one different point to add. Yeah, thank you.
So I can go next, and some amazing best practices here. I'm actually taking notes as you're talking. Starting from the hiring practices, 1 or 2 things that I want to highlight that we do differently at Akamai is, I think a lot of you spoke about how the job descriptions are inclusive. So we have an AI tool called Role Mapper, and every single job description, whether it's internal or whether it's external, it goes through the Role Mapper to see if the job description is inclusive. The other one is about hiring practices, and we spoke about the meritocracy when you're actually hiring diversity talent. So one of the things that we do is, if there is a woman who leaves a position and there is a backfill that has to happen, most of the time we ensure that it is a woman who is filling up that role. So there is an additional team which works on sourcing women-centric profiles for that role, and also ensures that the panel is a diverse panel when interviewing every single role, not just for this. The other thing, and a lot of us spoke about having specific development programs at different junctures. And we do that too. So we have a program called Stand Tall, which we've been doing for almost 6 years now. And we have seen how women, specifically at lead level, have grown up the chain to become part of management roles, have moved up to CXO roles. We've not just done a program which is for 6 months, but we've really tracked their progress over the last 6 years by building an alumni network and providing many opportunities. But one of the things that I want to highlight here is a lot of our programs, when we saw, were about fixing women. Like, I'm going to teach you ABC skill to make you better at, like somebody spoke about masculine and feminine characteristics. So one of the things that we did differently is, we work at a belief level and not at a skill level. So really touching upon self-limiting beliefs that somebody already spoke about. So you come back feeling empowered, and you come back
the horse.
you come back feeling, having more permissions to ask for help, like Remona was talking about sharing the load. Are you able to ask for help? Are you able to let go of that guilt and, take up that new development program without worrying about what's going to happen at home? And are you able to give yourself permission to do more of these things? But also creating an ecosystem. So if a participant is going through a program, we ensure that the managers are part of that journey from day one, so that, let's say, you go back feeling more empowered to say no more. The manager is not wondering like, what happened to this woman? She went through this program and she's come back as this new person, but gives opportunities to really practice that newly learned skill and to allow space for being the authentic version of themselves. The other one I want to highlight is about the whole talent review and the talent management process that happened. And we saw that, especially when a woman, first of all, the number of women who gets discussed during the process is low. But when you're getting discussed, your functional capabilities are not really spoken as the highlight number one. It is usually the people managers' capabilities which gets highlighted. And the second thing is, if a woman is going on maternity or is going to get married or have to move countries because husband has a new role somewhere else, that gets discussed as point number one. Whereas when a man's profile is getting discussed, it is probably point number 4 or 5, which is like said as a matter of fact. So we ensured that the talent management practices, the talent reviews are more objective in nature and not really subjective and based on opinions of people, but really there's more data and there's more quantitative data around who is getting discussed, what is the potential, who's the successor, what is the functional capability, and things like that. And the last one that I want to highlight is, I think a lot of us spoke about mindset shift on biases. And one of the things that we saw is when we started doing unconscious bias training, it kind of created reverse discrimination. People started feeling that something is wrong with me and, I'm biased. So we kind of used a neuroscience way of talking about bias to say, if you have a brain, you have a bias. So all of us are biased. And it is about identifying and labeling those biases. And and it is a team sport. You're probably more likely to catch a bias in someone else than yourself. And it is okay. So it kind of created a common ground for everybody to talk about biases in an open way without feeling like, okay, something is wrong with you. So yeah, just wanted to highlight some of these two.
Yeah, a human brain will have some bias for sure.
I would
Anupama,
like to one point to what Charu mentioned. A lot of times we are looking at talent acquisition because we do have those specific numbers that we can talk about, the representation of women. But one of the other things that we're doing in Carelon Global is ensuring that any BRG we set up, any initiative, any task force, any club, anything at all, we ensure that there is a fair proportion of women representing in those groups as well. We all know that women don't raise their hands, say that, I have time, I want to be involved here. And this is one way we make sure that, everywhere in the organization, even where it's not measurable, we make sure that there is a woman. And at times we also give them, we enable them to lead these BRGs or lead these groups or lead these webinars as well. That has actually meant there's a lot more visibility for women as well across, right? So they get visible, there's more visibility to peers, to leadership, and so on and so forth. And that's what I think builds a lot of confidence as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anupama, would you like to add?
So I think most of the points have already been covered by everyone over here. But just one point which I wanted to bring out, which we at least do in Beam Suntory as well, is also look at the performance management process as a way to evaluate women more fairly. What we've realized, especially because as in what we found is that in self-assessment, women tend to underpitch themselves quite significantly at times. And the gap between what they talk about themselves versus what their managers' opinions of them are is quite significant. And I think one thing that we do very actively, at least in our performance appraisal process, is during rating discussions, especially, we talk about the female employees separately, We talk about, what's going behind if someone is rated too low versus their own self-assessment, for example. We do have that conversation as to what's going on over here. And a lot of times these conversations are also mediated by our global diversity teams as well. They sit in on these conversations to understand, what's at play, especially because, in the sales function, there are so few women to begin with. So, it becomes a much more prickly topic for them. And I think that's a good way to kind of acknowledge biases, if at all there are any, during the process. And it really helps in terms of ensuring that even during that process, where we tend to be so hard on ourselves, at least, you have a formal system in place to correct for that.
To add to this, Anupama, you said, the low representation of women in sales, definitely. And here in SoftwareOne, it's like another initiative which has happened is that people who, women especially who are in technology and would want to have move over to sales, or for any reason they thought themselves to be lesser because of the mindset issues or whatever the issues. So it's an initiative that, bring in your technology. We will train you how to be good in sales, good at sales. And, you leave all your mindset limitations or whatever, we will train you, and vice versa as well. For sales, if they want to go back into technology. So I think these kind of crossover and crossover into functions or technology or domain expertise, I think that initiative also should be taken in by the organization.
Anupama, would you like to add?
So first of all, thank you so much for all the lovely practices that you all shared. And like Charu, I have also made notes of a couple of them. And I'd just like to add two more things which we are doing over and above some of the things that we have already discussed here. One is an initiative that we run at regular intervals called Head Over the Clouds, where your fellow colleagues from your organizations, and I'm talking about women colleagues, who come and share about the various obstacles that they have faced during their career journey, both from the personal side as well as the professional side, and how they have managed to kind of, keep their head over the clouds and navigate through that scenario and come out. What helps in doing this is that we see a lot of celebrity successful women in media in different fields, but sometimes they all seem a little distant. We hear Indra Nui, we hear Sudha Murthy, we hear women, successful women in all spheres of life, but to a common person, to a common man, or to a common woman, many times it might seem that, okay, they are from a different league and all of it. Maybe in my own way, it's not very related. But when I see my next door colleague going through very, very similar situations that I'm going through and have still risen up the ladder or is still doing very well, that just gives that confidence that if she can do it, why not me? So, and we when we started off with, we thought we'll just do one season of it, but we heard such tremendous feedback, and then on popular demand, we kind of have been running this quite often now. And the best part of it is that now the men colleagues also say that why just restrict it for the women colleagues? It's, after all, we are all human beings, and both men and women have similar kind of life situations, and we can all benefit from it. So let those podcasts be for the entire organization. So that's one thing we do. And another thing, and this is with regards to the question that I saw in the chat box, was what are some of the strategies that you do to get women back to employment? One thing that we try to ensure as much as possible, that for every role that we interview, we ensure that we have a women panelist there. And this is only to kind of instill that confidence again, that, and women panelists a little in the senior levels as well, that will instill that confidence in the woman who is kind of participating in that interview and gearing up herself to get back to work, that, okay, there are people who have done it. Yes, the journey may not be very smooth, but it's all about seeing that role model again there. If she can do it, why not me? and making it very much realistic. And especially nothing like it if that women employee who is in the panelist has kind of grown in the organization that we are doing the interview for. So then that's more like a live example, and you are making the example speak for itself rather than just going and displaying particular couple of posters and saying that you do a couple of these things. So these are another two things which I just wanted to call out, apart from all the lovely points that all of you have mentioned.
Thanks, Anupama. I think we're short of time, so we'll just take one question, which was sent as a single woman leader. How to overcome biases in Indian workplace when most women are engaged with families, but this person feels as a single woman they're more aggressive or insensitive towards her counterparts. So, um, would anyone like to add here?
I can possibly take that because I am a single woman leader, possibly.
Sure,
No,
Anupama.
I'm married, but I don't have kids. But see, I think again, it's a person to person conversation. Honestly, I don't think it's a generalization. I've met equal number of women who are deeply empathetic about their employees, irrespective of whether they're women or they're men. And I've seen equal number of women who are extremely, extremely, for lack of a better word, insensitive about deliverables, about timelines, about commitments. I think it's a person to person conversation. I don't think it's necessarily a single woman conversation. And I think that, and I know that for a fact because I've had team members in, young mothers in my team who had to leave the company because, it was their choice. They wanted to leave because they felt that they wanted to be at home. And I tried my level best at that time to, bring in every possible policy, every possible, I went through the entire rule book to find every single way by which I could keep her on. But, it didn't work out. And I still consider that to be, a significant failure on my part, as a manager, that I was not able to work that out. So I think it's an individual conversation. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that single women, just because they have nothing better to do, that they're going to sit and just make everyone else's life miserable. I don't think that's the case. But yeah, I mean, it's an individual to individual conversation. So if someone is going through that, please don't generalize basis the fact that there are single women. I'm sure I know enough single women who are incredibly empathetic towards family oriented female employees.
Yeah.
In
I
fact,
agree to Anupama's. Yeah.
in fact, I'll just add on to what Anupama was saying, that I have seen it on the other side of the spectrum. And here I'll just not say women, the gentleman or the lady, because he or she was single, was so conscious about the fact that should not be perceived as an alpha male or extremely aggressive, would go out of the way to ensure that he or she is compassionate and does everything. And then at one point of time we had to tell, it's okay, you really don't have to be so out of the way, you don't have to be so so conscious about your single status, because the person was both. I have two examples from both the men and the women's side, and they were really trying very hard to ensure that they keep no stone unturned, and they were very conscious that they should not be perceived as extremely aggressive, and they do not, since they do not have the visibility of how it looks on the other side of the coin.
So I can also talk on this particular question, being a single woman and leading one of the entity of CNHI. First of all, if the question has been asked by a person who is single and he or she feels that okay, I'm not able to understand the need of other person, then the good thing is you have the acceptance that okay, I'm behaving in a certain pattern. So yes, you have accepted it that you are doing it. Go and find out ways, introspect that how you can overcome it. Second, if you are under a boss who is single and you feel that this thing is happening, trust me, it's just pure perception. Because in today's world, doesn't matter whether you are single or you are a family person, you have a life outside office, right? Everybody has life, and they are equally empathetic to other person needs because they also give priority to their needs. Second, a single person doesn't mean that they are not married, so they don't understand about family. We in India, we live in family. You have parents, you have brothers, you have siblings, you see their family, their needs. And I don't think anybody who is single is not empathetic to people's need. But in case, two situations which I have put across, if you are in the first category, congratulations, you have acknowledged that something is wrong, then go work on it. And if you are in the second category, again, you are perceiving it, so again there is an acceptance that I'm perceiving the single person doesn't have life. So again, if you have concern, you can talk to the person directly, and don't go by perceptions, is my answer to this question.
Thanks, Yuvika. Yeah, it was a question raised by a person. So yeah, they just wanted to get your inputs.
Great.
Anybody else would like to add? Because I think we'll be closing. It's already time.
Yeah,
Uh,
let me just add on to, especially in relation to the people who have joined on call. I'm very happy to see that a lot of male partners we have here who have joined the call. So very happy to hear them wanting to sensitize themselves about this. But for the women as well, I think my first suggestion would be to look at yourself as a professional. It's good that you're a woman, accept that femininity, and you understand that you don't have to become a man to be successful.
yeah.
Accept your femininity, celebrate your femininity, and help fellow women, right? So definitely, that's one thing that you should look at. Learn from your counterparts. Learn from the great things that are happening to the male employees. Do not look at them as it's happening to them because it's a man. No, look a little more closely, because the more and more, and the environment is shifting towards becoming more inclusive, and the companies are working towards trying to build this balance. But you have to understand that you being a woman would be different from a man, and it's okay. The difference should be celebrated, and
Yeah,
you would probably come out much better if you put in the same kind of effort or more compared to a man. Because
bang on.
it's just, I absolutely feel that it's been such a great conversation. It's like a
Yeah,
kitty party. When we come together, we bring colors, we bring variety, we bring so many thoughts, which I don't think only male meeting would have, like we are having right now, right? So really celebrate that. Second thing I would say is that understand that the companies are out there for selection, not for rejection. So enter into an interview process with a very positive mindset, that let's try to have a conversation with the panel, in terms of wanting to understand what is that the company also has to offer. Respect yourself, be ready with the answers that you probably see of the questions coming in, but make the best. When somebody asks you, do you have a question for me, do you want to know a little more about the company, be ready, be involved. Third, I would say is work on yourself as an individual. Understand the power of manifestation. If you want to see yourself working at a particular role, at a particular position in a particular company, begin to perform how you would be once you join that role. Talk about yourself, build your brand, become a great professional, understand where the trend is going, understand how you can remain employed 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, right? How can you become someone who's going to help a budding woman professional 10 years down the line, right? So begin to develop yourself as a professional, as a woman. Last thing I would say is that leaders are readers. Work on your content, work on who are the kind of people that you are engaging with. Spend your time wisely. Read about women who have made a great mark: Sudha Murthy, Indra Nui, Mel Robbins, male leaders like Simon Sinek, Jeffrey Pfeffer. There are so many great folks out there who you can learn from. So read as much as possible to develop yourself as an individual, as a professional. It's great being a woman, celebrate that, but continue to work on this journey of how you can improve yourself every day.
Thanks,
And if I
Koshika.
could just add on to one
Yeah,
point of
please
Koshika,
add.
you summarized it very well, Koshika, but I'll also advise all women, seek mentors and sponsors at work. I think it is very important that we find like-minded people. We look up to role models, connect with them, network with them, and see what has made them successful, see what challenges they had. I think those are very critical aspects for us to really move up. And I'm sure, the minute we find role models, we also feel that we can do it too.
And also think of yourself as a victory, not as a victim. The day you start thinking yourself as victory, you will achieve whatever you want.
I love this panel and that's such positive vibes. And I think I also personally believe in manifestation. Anybody else? Some closing comments? We just gonna wrap this session.
No, I think we are above our time, I guess, 5 minutes above our
Yeah.
time, and we should respect this time
Yes.
for everyone.
Yes.
And yes, I think beyond this, we will be having our own connects, right? We're not
Yes.
leaving it here.
I will reach
It's
out
a
to you personally.
lovely conversation knowing everyone
And
else
of course,
here.
we have a leadership club for women. I'll be happy to send invites to you. It'll be great if you can join in because we really want leaders like you to be included and have more conversations and not just a one day, event kind of a conversation. It has to be an ongoing shift and mindset change that we need to continuously drive, right? So thank you everyone for a great session. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Everyone.
everyone.
Enjoy your
Nice
weekend.
knowing you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
God
Bye.
bless. Thanks.